the one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 373 of Sports Card Nation. Hope everybody made it through the winter Armageddon storm okay. We got a lot of snow here. Got a day off from school, and my wife even had a day off from work, and she's a nurse. So hope everyone made it through okay and is doing all right. Got a great guest. My friend Clemente Lisi is on the program today, part one. And in part one today, we're going to talk some hockey, some NHL, some hobby, some players. And next week, the World Cup's coming to the States and North America, Canada, U.S., and Mexico. And next week, on the conclusion of part two, Clemente is one of the premier knowledgeable people when it comes to World Cup, the history, current, wrote a book. We'll talk about that as well. And just a vast bastion of knowledge when it comes to soccer. And so for someone like me that has just your base level, surface level, I always lean into him for new rules, players to watch, how this all goes down. And so next week he'll clear that up and tackle that, and look forward to both episodes. So with that being said, let's bring Clemente on. Always love chopping up sports and the hobby with the next gentleman. It's not his first time. He's a veteran of Sports Card Nation, but he just made me aware it's been 3 years since I had him on. I did not realize that. That is bad on me. I apologize, but always love having him on. I consider him a good friend, not just someone I know in the hobby. Fellow New Yorker, fellow writer. He's an author. I've never written a book before. He's got me beat there. Professor. I'm probably going to forget something. He's on other podcasts as well. So a man of many hats, Clemente Lisi. Welcome.
Hey, great to be back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I know. And you told me it's been 3 years. And I'm glad you did, because I really didn't realize it was that long. So I've already promised them, everybody, that it won't be 3 years between from this airing to the next time he's on. It'll actually be next week, but even past that, we won't space it out 3 years. But man, you know, like I said, you wear a lot of hats, and you're right. You've written a book about the World Cup, which has been updated with it coming to U.S. soil this year. We'll talk about that as well. But you know, you just a great guy, a great, you know, very knowledgeable. You go to some of the shows, you know, being in New York, I'm biased being originally from there, but that's the melting pot and the metropolis of sports and just everything, really. And so always fun to talk about whatever we're talking about. So how's things?
They're good, and I think 2026 will be a very busy sports year and a very busy hobby year with the World Cup, with the Winter Olympics,
and that's
a lot of other stuff.
And soccer's your like, you have more than one lane, but soccer's really a big lane for you. And so with the World Cup coming here on North American soil, it's going to be not only here in the U.S. but Mexico and Canada. We'll save a lot of that for later on. We'll start out with some hockey stuff. And I know you know you're on Puck Chuck with Sal Berry, and you cover hockey. I'm a huge Ranger fan. I'm gonna have to wear a bag over my head now. The way they're playing, it's been pretty bad. They can't score at home. But you know, I do watch other games, Clemente, besides the Rangers. I mean, predominantly Rangers. And I've always been a hockey fan since I was even a little kid. While I'm a Ranger fan, I love hockey, I've always said this on the show and to people in conversation. Hockey's one of the best sports to see live, and it's still pretty good even to watch it not live on TV. And I try to watch all the Ranger games, but I also watch other teams play. And I'll say this, and you tell me if you agree with me. There's always superstars in any sport, but right now there's like a youth movement of superstars taking the forefront in the NHL. And I'll mention some of them. I know I'll leave someone off, but guys like, but obviously Connor Bedard, McDavid's not a spring chicken anymore, but still young. Celebrini, the Hughes brothers, Wyatt Johnson, Lane Hudson, Cale Makar, Will Smith with San Jose, and again, there's Kiprasov. There's just the young talent that's now in the league and infused in the league. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always felt like before this, it always felt like you had like a few big stars, your Crosby, Ovechkin, and guys like that. But I think we're just seeing a lot more young talent kind of leading their teams. Well, what do you think of my assessment there? Am I off base? Has it always been like this, and maybe we're just noticing it more with more social media and more coverage?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think there's always been players that come into every league, the NHL being one of them. The issue is, though, a lot of them don't pan out. So if you look at the NHL, you mentioned McDavid, then before that, you have to go back a decade to Sidney Crosby and Ovechkin, right? So every 10 years, and after McDavid, 10 years later, you have Bedard, right? So every 10 years, you have that one player that becomes a symbol. But then you have others. And you mentioned Lane Hudson, who was having a great year last year, his rookie year. You have others, but Cale Makar's a great example. He was super hot a couple of years ago with Colorado, and then now he's kind of cooled off. So these players kind of come and go. And you didn't mention Austin Matthews. He's not young either, or Jack Eichel. These are good players,
Yeah.
And they're not super young. They've been in the league now 5-10 years, but a lot of potential there. I kind of measure them the way I would in the hobby. Like they get super hot. Their rookie cards do, the young guns cards do. And then they kind of taper off unless they win a cup or something. And so the only constants you have in the league are Ovechkin and Crosby, McDavid, because people want a sure thing. I mean, the hottest player to collect in the NHL, hockey card wise, is still Wayne Gretzky, right? And he's been retired a very, very long time. So people want sure things. They want to speculate, but at the same time, they want a sure thing. Now, the league has had a lot of young players. You mentioned a bunch of players who play for San Jose because they've been a pretty lousy team. So they get pretty high draft picks. Celebrini is one example. I think he's the real deal. I think Celebrini's a great player. We forget, as Ranger fans, and I put myself in that group too, we had Lafreniere, who there was a lot of hype behind him.
Hey, not to cut you off, but listen, speaking of guys that haven't lived up to what, the billing. I remember when they got that pick, and they pretty much said that's that was a big thing as a Ranger fan. We're going to have our own kind of young gun, not to steal up or but a guy that can light the lamp and be exciting to watch. And he's he had the last year he sort of made strides, and this year's regressed again, and he's even being talked about being traded. And I don't even know what his market would bring him on the trade market now. Like you're not going to get what maybe you once could. And we had with the second pick, we had Capo Caco, who I love. Still one of my favorite guys. But just maybe it's the bright lights in New York, as they say. But he went. We traded him to Seattle, and he played better there than he did wearing the blue shirts. And is there something to that with playing in a big city like New York?
Yeah, I think you see that with a lot of athletes, including baseball players, like on Yankees and the Mets and all these other, big teams where guys come in, and it is a pressure cooker because not only do you have the fans, but you have the media in New York, which is relentless. New York is still a 3-newspaper town. Some cities don't even have one newspaper. New York still, has 3 in the city and 1 on Long Island Newsday. So you have 4 newspapers covering you, all the TV stations. I mean, I remember the hype around Lafreniere. He could never live up to the hype. I mean, he's a third line guy and whatever, but the hype was always going to exceed what he can do, right? And so the Rangers traditionally like to pick up players, the like 10 years later. So I always joke with my
Yeah,
friend
the
Sal.
Gretzky and
Yeah.
Gretzky and the
Yeah.
tail end of his career.
Yeah.
Yager and
Right.
the
Right.
Lindros.
Messier,
Yeah.
Lindros.
Oh
So
no, Messier's
yeah.
my guy. Like, listen, he
Right.
brought us the
Yeah, of
last
course.
cup, which who
But he
knows
wasn't
when
young.
that'll happen
He
again.
wasn't
We
young.
may not.
Yeah.
I hope we live to see it, Clemente.
No, it's true. But I
know.
joke with my friend Sal. I say, Connor Bedard, he'll be a Ranger in about 12 years. And I can
Or
see that.
McDavid at the end.
Or McDavid in the last 2 years when nobody wants him, and it'll be great. Maybe you'll win a cup, maybe you won't. I mean, we forget the '94 Rangers were basically a rethread of the Oilers. A lot of them were, and it worked. And and they caught lightning in a bottle. They won the cup. It was amazing. I mean, the Rangers celebrate 100 years this year. They're one of the original 6 teams. It's a story team, a story franchise, but they haven't had the best of luck recently. And oftentimes you want to rebuild. I find in the NHL, it's almost easier to be a newer team. Look at the Golden Knights, for example, or look at Tampa, or look at Florida, or look. These teams have won the cup multiple times. They're very good. They're able to start fresh. And then you look at, like, we complain as Ranger fans, but look at the Maple Leafs. They haven't won anything since '67, and they have a great fan base, a great hockey culture.
Yeah, they're a storied franchise.
Right. They have great
like
players.
You show that logo to people who aren't even hockey fans, and they'll probably say, like, Toronto Maple Leafs. I know there's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is the pedigree isn't enough. You need to bring in the right combination, the right coach. And maybe Toronto, like New York, there's just a lot of eyeballs on them, a lot of pressure. And a lot of young guys tend to just not to wilt under that pressure. If you're Celebrini and you're in San Jose, well, it's a different kind of market. Not everyone, even if everyone in San Jose cared, it still wouldn't be a ton of people. And so you have time to make mistakes and to grow. And so that's the advantage those franchises have. And I think New York, the Rangers, the Islanders, same thing. It doesn't afford that kind of luxury, I think, ultimately. And the players suffer, and ultimately they want to go somewhere else, like a medium-sized market, like I'm thinking like a Columbus, Blue Jackets, or, a Nashville Predators or Carolina Hurricanes. Those are places you can kind of build a team over time. It can take 10 years. People in New York don't have that kind of patience, even though New York hasn't won.
I don't. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
I don't, right?
Yeah.
And it's you don't realize, like, that '94 Cup, that's 32 years ago. That's crazy.
It's a lot
to me. And if you would have told me in '94, Clemente, I was 22 when they won that cup, watched that game with some friends, poured beer all over each other like we were players ourselves. If you would have told me that night, right, beating Vancouver, Messier, holding that cup, if you would have told me that 32 years later, we still wouldn't have won another one since, I would have thought you're nuts. And not only is that the case, but we're not even close right now the way we're playing. And we can make this a whole Rangers podcast. I'm not a big fan of Chris Drury, the GM. We mentioned players not panning out, right? But there's a guy that drafts those guys and makes those trades. I don't think he's pushed all the right buttons, but it's scary to think, like, when I'm in my 50s now, will I live to see another Rangers Cup? I think we get spoiled too, because 2 years ago we won the President's Trophy, most points in the regular season. We made a run and then had a serious drop off the last couple of years. We have going through coaches. Maybe it's not the coaching. Maybe it goes above the coaching and that sort of thing. So, as a fellow Ranger fan, I'm sure a lot of that probably resonates with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, New York in general hasn't won a championship in quite a while. If you look at the Knicks, another great example, our MSG co-dwellers, they haven't won anything, the Mets and even the Yankees, right? They got the World Series and lost, and no one's going to stop the Dodgers the last couple of years. So New York has been a bit of a drought when other cities like Boston and Philadelphia, that we consider our big rivalries on the East Coast, right? They've enjoyed more success in football. And I mean, look at the Giants and the Jets. I mean, they've been terrible for years now. I know you're a Steelers fan and you're coming off a playoff loss, and you're not gonna
We'll do a whole nother show. I'm not going to, but we can do a whole nother show.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw the whole story about
the
final weekend when they beat Baltimore. That was amazing. But all the holy water.
Yeah, we
in the
had to
world
listen.
was-
Even that game, Clemente, we had to rely
Yeah.
on a missed 40-yard
Yeah.
field goal, which is a chip shot in today's NFL. Like that
It
was a
is. You're-
shock that he missed it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
did
So-
we earn it, or did we sort of back our way in and then look like when we played the Texans, we looked like we probably shouldn't have been. So
Yeah.
so
and
and now we're
that's-
gonna have
yeah.
a new coach.
Right, exactly. And then you start from scratch and and keep hoping. And the Steelers are another storied franchise, right? So it's that kind of thing. I mean, look, sometimes championships happen when you least expect them. I mean, for the Rangers, to stay on that topic this season, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the goal is to make the playoffs. You never know.
And that's sad to me. You mentioned like it's the centennial season.
Right.
They're doing all sorts of events
They are.
at the Garden. They're bringing a lot of the legends back. They're doing a lot of stuff with like first responders and police and protecting services type of thing and stand up to cancer. And we just look so horrible on the ice, especially at home. Even worse at home. Usually it's the opposite, right?
Sure.
We play better at home and worse on the road. We're the opposite of that, which makes no sense.
And I hope the GM, the management realize when they get to the trade deadline that maybe they have to make some real moves, spend some real money, bring in some players. They tried this before; it hasn't quite worked out. In the last couple of years, the trade deadline, they bring in a superstar, and then it kind of doesn't work out. So, look, anything can happen. I mean, the NHL is one of those leagues where there's a lot of parity, and then you never know. An 8th seed like the Florida Panthers a few years back could get to the Stanley Cup Finals, right? Like, you don't need to be a number 1 seed. You won the President's Trophy, and often that's bad. I mean, look at the Bruins a couple of years back; they were gone, right? So you never know in the playoffs. Any system that has playoffs in it, you just never know. You just want to get in the playoffs and then see what happens. And you get hot. You need a hot goaltender. And look, Shesterkin is a great goaltender. I mean,
and that's the
annoying part.
And we're sort of like wasting that. You know what I mean? I almost feel like that window gets every season we don't win a cup with him between the pipes. Right? Is that window gets tighter? Plus, it's got to be frustrating for him. He's standing on his head, playing out of his mind. And we're losing 2-1 or 3-2.
Well, they won't score enough
can't
goals.
Score.
Yeah, they can't score
because we can't score. So like I could see him at some point going, his agent going to Drury, whoever might be the GM, and say, "Get my guy out of here." Like let's segue in a little bit. Talk about a guy you mentioned, Clemente and Connor McDavid. You know what I mean? He's probably the best player in hockey. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup now. He's been to 2, and they ran into Florida both times, right? He's the best player on the ice, but he didn't win the cup. He didn't play bad, but we can make an argument. This goaltender, not to point the finger at one guy, but Skinner did not play well in both of those Stanley Cup. I always tell my Ranger friends, not that I want Shesterkin to be there, but if Shesterkin was on the Oilers in those 2 cups, I know they probably won at least one of them, if not both. They at least split one of those series, if not both, and they would be a much better team overall. And as much it would hurt, like to trade him, but as a fan, the guy's doing everything in his power. I know he's hurt at the moment, but like you root for guys like that. If it's a choice where he wastes away on the Rangers and never gets to hoist the Stanley Cup, I could be selfish as a fan and say, yeah, that's fine by me. Or I could say, hey, we could trade him to Edmonton, maybe get some draft picks and a couple young players and reload and rebuild. And he gets to, get a ring there. I'm not, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world for all parties, but it's so hard to say. Obviously, I want him to hoist the cup wearing, red, white, and blue jersey. Ideally in Madison Square Garden, but like you said, it's just you can be the best team in the President Cup, President Trophy winner. It doesn't mean you're just going to skate out there and they're going to give you the game. You gotta still win the game. So
time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
And, speaking of McDavid, I went off on a tangent, brought it back to the ring. Speaking of McDavid, there's a guy who's no one really will argue he's the current best player in the game. Doesn't have a cup, got close. If he never wins, when his career said and done, he never wins the cup, how differently will fans and hobbyists look at him? Or not will he sort of be the exception to the rule?
Yeah, generally, I'm a big believer that you need to win a championship. But I think in McDavid's case, he could become the exception. And that's because the numbers he puts up just as an individual are staggering. And the hobby has responded to that. I mean, look at all the McDavid rookie years, the young guns, even though there's tons of them and they've been graded in the thousands, they still command a premium as other rookie cards do. His autographs. I mean, everything McDavid is valuable, worth a lot. It's when I go to the expo in Toronto, generally I go every fall. Other than Gretzky, he's the one you see everywhere, him and Crosby. And so those are the constants. So yeah, now Crosby won a cup. Ovechkin has won a cup. The thing with McDavid would be interesting. If Canada were to win, let's say, a gold medal, right? Then it could be, because the other, it's an exception, but it has happened where being really good, putting up great numbers and winning an Olympic gold medal will get you into the Hall of Fame. Because it's not the NHL Hall of Fame, it's the Hockey Hall of Fame. And so Henrik Lundqvist, for example, did those things. He never won a cup in New York. If anyone deserved the cup, it was Lundqvist, right? He didn't win a cup. He won a gold medal with Sweden. He put up great numbers. And he was a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. So there's no way McDavid isn't a shoo-in given the numbers.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Cup or no cup. He's right. He's definitely.
And on top of that, he was MVP of the playoffs one year. The year they lost, he was MVP of the series, even though they lost. So that doesn't happen all the time. So he transcends that. And so he's a Hall of Famer the day he retired. But I would love to see him win a cup, because it would just kind of come full circle, especially when you lose two of them in a championship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. If the Rangers are going to win the cup, I sort of root for McDavid to get that first one. But because by all accounts, he's a decent guy. He's not a big show boater or trash talker. Just kind of plays, does his talking with his play. Just an incredible play. Even watching him, and I don't watch a ton of him, being he's on the West Coast, but I see enough of him. You don't have to watch much to realize just how much better he is than a lot of the players in the league. Who do you think? We got Crosby and Ovechkin, two of the greatest ever to lace them up. They're on their, the back nine, if you will, of the careers. Who's, if I asked you, Clemente, in your opinion, McDavid right now is the best player in hockey, but if you took out Crosby and Ovechkin out of the equation, who's the next guy?
I think it's Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews, I think, is that next guy. But again, he's an American. He's playing in Toronto. Is he going to win a cup? He needs to put up individual numbers. Whenever you look at who's breaking records, it's still McDavid, it's still Ovechkin, it's still Sidney Crosby, because of longevity. They've been playing for so long. So when you play for a long time, you put up numbers. It's a matter of, and to play 20 years is staggering, considering hockey is a contact sport. I mean, guys play 10. If you have a 10-year NHL career, that's considered amazing. It's like the NFL. When you're playing 20, 25 years, the curious thing is, will something happen with McDavid? Will he go to a different team? Will he finish his career with the Oilers? He may not. If he doesn't win a cup there, he may want to go somewhere else. And there was a little talk this year, or last year, I should say. There was a contract dispute, and people were rumors about, is he going to leave? And then, of course, he stayed. But I think Austin Matthews is that guy. And then after that, I have to say it is Connor Bedard. At least that's the promise, the hope. He's had a couple of, he won Rookie of the Year. He won the Calder. Last year was okay. But again, he's on a franchise, the Blackhawks, where they've been in rebuilding mode for quite a while now. And at some point, either they really rebuild or he's going to be a free agent and is going to want to leave and say, I want to go on a team that doesn't need, 8, 9 parts, just needs 1 or 2 because I want to win a cup, And so the great thing about Bedard is he puts up numbers because he gets a lot of ice time. He plays a lot. But I remember I went to see him play at the Garden his rookie year. And I also interviewed Connor Bedard a couple of years ago at the rookie showcase that the NHL has every year in Washington before the season starts. And he's a fairly small guy. And so the hope is you got to put some muscle and meat on this guy. He's only been in the league 2-3 years, and hopefully he can come into his own. But the way Bedard plays is pretty amazing. I mean, his shot, his speed, he's the complete deal. Like, he's gotten a lot of hype, both hobby hype and hype in general, but I think it's deserved. And I think Celebrini, after him.
It's funny you mention him because I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
They're sort of compared to each other now.
Yes.
Similar ages, similar situations with young teams that
Yes.
have a bunch of like high picks even after they were high picks themselves. And I've had this discussion with other hockey fans. Like, some will say Connor Bedard is better than Celebrini, and then someone else will say Celebrini is better than Bedard. Like, kind of, where do you and here's my thing. They're both very good players, and they both have a chance to be great players. I don't know why we have to have this debate, especially this early in their careers as well. But kind of, what's your take when you look at both of these guys in similar circumstances?
Yeah. So Bedard has a couple of years on him in the league, so that's helpful. But you're right. The circumstances are very similar. They're number 1 picks coming on teams that already had bad seasons and other young players and other young picks. So scenario is similar. I do think that people that say that Celebrini is better than Bedard, they do that to provoke Bedard fans. And there's a lot of them out there, because if you go to a card show, you go to a game, there's a lot of people with Bedard jerseys. Because as soon as he came into the league, I think the league was like, we got to market this guy, because the NHL needs all the marketing help they can get. It's still the number 4 sport in North America, maybe even number 5 or 6 if you consider soccer and MMA and auto racing and all that other stuff. So the NHL has to gravitate and make superstars out of young players. And the big comparison is Sidney Crosby. He does play a lot like Crosby. So in that sense, I do think that Bedard is a little bit better. It doesn't mean that Celebrini doesn't, blow up and San Jose gets really good and they win a cup or something. Then that helps. I mean, it helps to have that, championship energy around you. But right now, I think they're about even. And so we'll see if the Blackhawks or San Jose, which team does better, or if they eventually leave those franchises and go somewhere else. I can see that happening. I mean, there's nothing that says Bedard has to be in Chicago the rest of his life, and same for Celebrini. So we'll see. We'll see when their contracts are up. It's a couple of years from now.
Well, listen, maybe we'll be cheering. Maybe we'll be cheering him on in wearing Ranger jerseys.
You never know. But if you talk about hobby hype, the hype around Bedard, I've never seen anything like that. So I haven't been on the show in quite a while, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And in that entire time I was not on the show, there was Bedard mania all over the place. I mean, to the point where I've never seen. I mean, the prices of his Young Guns card went up to $1,200 like the first week it came out, which is ridiculous because now it's settled down. It's about $300, which is probably where it should have been from day one. But what I'm saying is, people that never collected hockey, never cared about hockey players, they know who Bedard is, and they know Ovechkin, and they know McDavid, and they know Sidney Crosby, but that's all they know. And they know Bedard is in that pantheon. Whether it's deserved or not, whether or not that fizzes out, we'll see. But people still want Bedard cards. I mean, they still care. I mean, because the Nationals in Chicago a lot, there's a lot of Bedard mania, in Chicago, and there's at the Expo generally. And you can tell if people are holding on to Bedard because he kind of cooled off last year. And people are like, you know what? I'm not going to sell Bedard because it's too low. I'm going to hang on to him. Hope he has a great season, puts up, 80, 90, 100 points. And then I'm going to put it back in my showcase and charge top dollar for his rookie year cards, and people are going to gravitate to them. So if you go to shows and you don't see Bedard, it's because people are hanging on to them. They're like, you know what? He's low now. I can't put him out. And so there's the speculation on him, even though it's 3 years, people are still playing this game with Bedard, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, one more question, hockey, and then we're getting into some soccer here with the World Cup approach. And I know you write some about this, so you may have covered this in an article. But obviously Bedard stuff isn't cheap, even though it's got room. The ceiling's not necessarily reached. If someone asked you, like, hey, what young player is just way too undervalued. I should probably buy some, put some away. Maybe the answer is Bedard, or is there someone else in your opinion, like for what he's eventually going to, what in your opinion, what he's going to be as a player? Like his cards are way too cheap. And I don't want to ruin it if you're doing that, but like, hey, this is a guy I would like buy and just forget that I bought it and put it in a box and see what happens. Who kind of checks that box in your mind?
Yes, so there's Matvey Michkov of the Flyers. He was hot when he first came out, but then didn't do a whole lot. So he's kind of cooled off. And Philadelphia's a good hockey market, but it's not the kind of thing that's national. So I think Michkov is one of those players. Should Celebrini have a great year and the Sharks have a great year, then I think Will Smith will also naturally grow because he's on a team, a young guy too, who I think, is undervalued at the moment. Players like Lane Hudson, for example, may be overvalued because a lot of speculation on him. He's not having a great season. So, he reminds me a little bit of, Adam Fox of the Rangers. Super hot coming out of the gate. A couple of years in, it's like cool off time. So who knows? Someone like Lane Hudson, it doesn't help. We talk about in football cards, everyone wants to collect quarterbacks. Nobody really wants to speculate on rookies who are defensemen. Not really, or goaltenders. People want guys who score goals, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't help when, a Cale Makar wins a Stanley Cup or wins a Rookie of the Year or something. People are like, oh, or Lane Hudson or an Adam Fox or these kind of players, So I would say don't speculate on these guys because their value will go up and down super quick. Michkov is a forward. He's going to score goals. So you want someone like that. And Will Smith, same thing. Forward, he can score goals. And he pairs really nicely with Celebrini sometimes. And so those are the kind of players I'm looking at. But then there's other players that, could emerge because, hockey's a little different than the other sports. You got guys coming in from Europe, from Sweden and Finland and Germany and all over the place. And guys pop up all of a sudden. And then you have now this kind of growing trend where a lot of these guys who play junior hockey in Canada are like, why should I play AHL and make $600 a game when I can go play college hockey and do an NIL deal or something? And so college hockey might get better as a result of that. And college hockey is okay. And a lot of decent Americans come out of there. But college hockey could get better because players want to make some real money and want to get some real deals. And then they can jump and get drafted. So, it's interesting. I mean, you kind of have to, but generally the hobby gravitates towards the superstars who are established. We know this. And so what always bothers me is that there's always 2 or 3 guys everyone wants. And then everyone else's values are not good. Like a Jack Eichel. This guy's value should be great. He played in Buffalo. Okay, he played for a team that was, in a bad market. They're having a good year now. But okay, he goes to Vegas. They win the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter. No one's a Jack Eichel player collector. No one's looking for Jack Eichel, Or Austin Matthews, same thing. Maybe because he's an American playing in Toronto. Okay, in Toronto, he's hot. Everywhere else, not so much. That always bothers me that there's room in the hobby for more than Gretzky, McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby. That's really it. And then maybe Bedard.
Yeah.
And that's it. And nobody, you're a dealer, you wear many hats.
Yeah.
People, if they ask you about hockey and they're not really hockey guys, they'll ask you for 3. You probably get the same.
Yeah.
Do you have any Bedard? Do you have any Ovechkin? Do you have any McDavid or Gretzky? It's 4 guys.
Yeah.
So that's always troublesome. Yeah. So to me,
it's like basketball. It's like Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe.
Right. Yeah, Jordan is like Gretzky. He's been retired forever.
And I get that. I'm not trying to say.
I get it.
Yeah.
But think about. I think the idea is collectors should definitely stretch what they collect, what they want. And I understand not every card could have the values those cards have because there just isn't enough money in the hobby potentially for people to want all that. And then if someone wins the cup, it goes up. But what I generally try to do is say, you know what, O-Pee-Chee's coming out and they have marquee rookies. I'm going to try to collect the whole set or the whole marquee rookie set just so I have the rookies of that year. Because you just never know how a guy go from a dollar box could go into a showcase. And this happened a couple of years back with the goaltender Jordan Binnington, right? He was like $1. His Young Guns card was like $1. Then they won the Stanley Cup, and it was like $60, $80, and now it's back to probably $1. But you know what I mean? So it's a wild swing. So if you're in it just to collect like I am, then it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's worth
Yeah.
$1 or
Yeah.
$800. I want that card. I like that player.
Yeah.
I care about it. If you're looking to buy and sell, then you have to make these moves quick. And so that's,
Yeah.
those are a couple of names I look at. But, I've gone to the rookie showcase last couple of years. I write about it for Sports Collectors Digest. And that way we're colleagues because we both write for the same magazine. And it's always fun to see these players up close. And, Tom Brady a couple of years ago at a Fanatics Fest, the first one, and I was there for the first one. He basically said any athlete, even if they're not that good, if they're playing professional, they're in the 1% of the 1%.
Oh, yeah.
And when I see these guys on the ice, I'm like, maybe these rookies, some of them won't make it, but these guys are amazing. And I think we lose sight of that because we're so starstruck by the 3, 4, 5 guys. Everyone's looking for Mount Rushmore, but there's a lot of players out there to look at, and I'm getting at.
Well, it's a Mount Rushmore because you can only get 3 or 4 guys right there. That doesn't mean they're the only ones that are good, but it's a great point by you, Clemente, right? Like, anyone that's playing professional sports, it's not easy to do. Like you said, it's probably less than 1%. That's just how you have to round up to the 1%. Right. So it's a full number, but it's crazy, right? And especially hockey too, like football, it's a pretty heavy contact sport. So, one bad injury can potentially end a career or change a career. Even we've seen players who've gotten hurt and they've come back, but maybe they're not quite the same player they were even before the end. And it happens in other sports as well. So, but I just, to me, I'll close with this, and then we're going to definitely get into soccer here. I've watched hockey for, like I said, 40 years, like legitimately, where I know what I'm watching. And I just seems like the last few years, I've never seen this much young talent across the board, like in the league on almost every team, right? Even the team that may be not playing well standings wise, they have like a budding, I'll say it like that, a budding potential superstar that's playing pretty well. And you mentioned Bennington going from the bargain box to out of the bargain box. We got a guy we've already spoke about, right? When Lafreniere first hit, right, his stuff was going for $300 as Young Guns, right?
Yeah,
we both know that's not even close anymore. And if things don't change, and I hope they do, because he's a Ranger at the moment, and I want him to play well. But if things don't change, you get that thing for $5-10 at some point. If that happens, that's crazy to think where that card once was in the hobby space to where it might wind up if things don't trend in a positive direction. But you pointed that out, right? Things can go. It's a two-way street. Things can go one way or back the other way, and sometimes it happens to the same player. Right. Yes. And, so I'm hoping, I get jealous too when the Islanders get the number 1 pick and they pick Schaefer and he looks like the real deal. And I'm like, why couldn't we hit with a pick, and it's frustrating sometimes, but I'm not going to change. I'm always be a Ranger fan to thick or thin. I'm just hoping it's not another 32, or 50-year wait from when we won it from 94 to the time before that. But I won't be around if it's 50 years anyway. So. All right, that's going to do it for the first half of our conversation with Clemente Lisi. We talked some hockey today, but this dude, and he'll tell you himself, he's more of a soccer guy than a hockey guy, although he doesn't fall short in hockey. But he is a vast bastion of knowledge of soccer. And guess what? Next week, we're going to cover the World Cup, soccer, the soccer market, the soccer hobby in detail. And he breaks it down and gives us the straight scoop. And, I don't care how big of or not big of a soccer fan. When Clemente talks soccer, it's definitely very interesting. And I'm self-professed not a huge soccer fan, although I do enjoy the World Cup when it's in play. But he definitely keeps the conversation interesting. So come back here next week and hear Clemente break down the World Cup, the soccer hobby, and everything surrounding it.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
This is Mike Summer from the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute. Don't forget, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.